Hey guys, what's up? It's Drago here, and today we're going to be discussing an archetype that is amazing in my opinion. I love it so much. Even some of its main monsters are on my background over here. So make sure to blast 3 days grace because today we're going to be talking about the Darklord archetype.
A fallen angel in the dark. Never thought you'd fall so far. Fallen angel, close your eyes. I won't let you fall tonight. Fallen angel.
Alright, so before we begin, I just want to say that I'm only going to be covering cards that originally had Darklord in its name, and not cards whose names were changed to Darklord. So Darklord Marie and Darklord Nurse Ficule won't be included, although I will explain the reason behind the name change. So, with that out of the way, let's get into the review. The Darklord archetype consists of 11 monsters, 2 spells, and 3 trap cards. This archetype translates to Fallen Angel in Japanese, and these cards were used in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX manga by Duel Academy teacher and head of Cypher House Midori Hibiki. The original 3 Darklords were originally YCS prize cards in 2010, while a couple of their fellow members were released in smaller, insignificant sets. Later, the original 3 were released in the Duel Academy Legendary set, making them readily available to the general public. Then, many years later, they got support, and all of the Darklord cards were again released in Destiny Soldiers, and the final 2 cards were released in Duelist Saga. The Darklord monsters are all dark fairy type effect monsters that can be found in the main deck and range from level 11 to 3. At the making of this video, there are currently no extra deck Darklord monsters. So first up, we have the main boss monster of the archetype, Darklord Morning Abs. The English name for this card is Darklord Morningstar, and its Japanese name is Fallen Angel Lucifer. This monster is level 11 with base stats of 3000 attack and defense. This card's effect reads, cannot be special summoned. If this card is tribute summoned, you can special summon Darklord monsters from your hand and or deck up to the number of effect monsters your opponent controls. While you control another Darklord monster, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. Once per turn, you can send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard, equal to the number of Darklord monsters on the field, and if you do, gain 500 life points for each Darklord card sent to the graveyard by this effect. Now these next 4 cards all have the same effect, but they also have an additional effect that is unique to them. The shared effect reads, during either player's turn, you can pay 1000 life points, then target one Darklord spell trap card in your graveyard. Apply that target's effect, then shuffle that target into the deck. You can only use each effect of Darklord blank once per turn. You can only special summon one Darklord blank once per turn. Darklord Ixchel is level 10 with 2500 attack and 2900 defense. Her Japanese name is Fallen Angel Ixtab, and her secondary effect states you can discard this card and one Darklord card, draw 2 cards. Darklord Tezcatlipoca is level 9 and has base stats consisting of 2800 attack and 2100 defense. His secondary effect dictates if a Darklord monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can discard this card instead. This card's Japanese name is Fallen Angel Tezcatlipoca. Darklord Naston is Fallen Angel Meistema in Japan, and is level 7 with 2600 attack and defense. His secondary effect states you can discard 2 other Darklord cards, special summon this card from your hand. Darklord Amdusk is up next, and his name translates to Fallen Angel Amdusias. His base stats are 1800 attack and 2800 defense. His secondary effect states you can discard this card and one Darklord card, then target one Darklord card in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Now for the other Darklord monsters. Darklord Desire translates to Fallen Angel Desire, and is level 10 with 3k attack and 2800 defense. Its effect reads, cannot be special summoned. You can tribute this card by tributing one fairy monster. Once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls. This card loses exactly 1000 attack, and if it does, send that card to the graveyard. Darklord Asmodeus is level 8 with 3k attack and 2500 defense. This card's effect reads, this card cannot be special summoned from the deck or graveyard. Once per turn, you can send one fairy-type monster from your deck to your graveyard. When this card you control is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, special summon one Asmo token, fairy-type, dark, level 5, attack 1800, defense 1300, and one Deus token, fairy-type, dark, level 3, attack 1200, defense 1200. Asmo token cannot be destroyed by card effects. Deus token cannot be destroyed by battle. Darklord Superbia is the English equivalent of Fallen Angel Superbia, and is level 8 with 2900 attack and 2400 defense. Its effect states, when this card is special summoned, you can target one fairy-type monster in your graveyard, except Darklord Superbia, special summon that target. Darklord Zerato, Fallen Angel Zerato in the Japanese, is also level 8, but with 2800 attack and 2300 defense. His effect states that if you have 4 or more dark monsters with different names in your graveyard, you can tribute summon this card by tributing one dark monster. You can send one dark monster to the graveyard, destroy all monsters your opponent controls. Once per turn, during the end phase, if this effect was activated this turn, destroy this card. Darklord Ede Are is known as Fallen Angel Ede Are in the OCG. This monster is level 5, with 2300 attack and 2k defense. This card's effect reads, if this card is special summoned from the graveyard, it gains this effect. If this card attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing damage to your opponent. And for the last monster, we have Darklord Ukobak, known as Fallen Angel Ukobak in the OCG. This card is level 3 with 700 attack and 1000 defense. This card's effect is, if this card is normal or special summon, you can send one Darklord card from your deck to your graveyard. You can only use this effect of Darklord Ukobak once per turn. And that pretty much does it for the monsters. Now for the spells and traps. Starting with the spells. First off, we have Banishment of the Darklords. This card's name in the Japanese is Banishing of the Fallen Angels, and its effect states, add one Darklord card from your deck to your hand, except Banishment of the Darklords. You can only activate one Banishment of the Darklords per turn. The next spell is Darklord Contact, which is known in the Japanese as Ordination Platform of the Fallen Angels. What a mouthful. Like the previous spell, this is a normal spell card, and its effect states, special summon one Darklord monster from your graveyard in defense position. You can only activate one Darklord Contact per turn. Now for the traps. Darklord Descent is known as Fallen Angel Descent in the OCG, and it's a normal trap card which states, pay half your life points, special summon up to 2 Darklord monsters from your graveyard in defense position, with the same level as one face-up monster your opponent controls. Darklord Enchantment, known in the OCG as Fallen Angel of Temptation, is a normal trap card which reads, send one Darklord monster from your hand or face-up from your field to your graveyard. Take control of one face-up monster your opponent controls until the end phase. You can only activate one Darklord enchantment per turn. The final trap in this archetype is Darklord Rebellion. This card in the OCG is called Fallen Angels Falling from Grace. It's a normal trap card with the following effect. Send one Darklord monster from your hand or face up from your field to the graveyard. Destroy one card on the field. You can only activate one Darklord Rebellion per turn. Alright, now that all the boring stuff is out of the way, let's get on to the trivia. The Darklord cards are named and based off of demons or deities, some of them relating to a sin. Due to this, however, some of their names that were really obvious have been changed when introduced to the TCG. A key example of this is Darklord Morningstar, whose name was originally Lucifer. Since Lucifer is the name of the devil, they changed it to Morningstar. Morningstar was one of the names for the angel Lucifer before his rebellion, as he was the bringer of dawn. Now, as much as I hate name changes, this one I don't really mind, since, in my opinion, Morningstar sounds much more badass. In fact, I feel like this one is totally awesome. I'll let myself out. The ones that had their names changed were Amdusk, who was based off of Amdusias, Desire, who was based off of Mammon, Morningstar, as mentioned above, and Nastin was based off of Mastima. Now, Ixchel is funny. Her Japanese name was Ixtab, which, if you don't know, Ixtab was the Mayan goddess of suicide, often called the Rope Lady or Lady of Ropes, because in Mayan culture, suicide was seen as an honorable way to die. probably because it showed humility or something. But the English name, Ixchel, which in my opinion sounds much more sexier, was the name of another Mayan goddess, the one of rainbows. But in the Mayan culture, rainbows were considered to be evil and the flatulence of demons. So, take your pick on what's better. I really don't know for this one. Anyway, some of their names weren't censored, fortunately. Ukabak is still called Ukabak, who is a demon in hell. Okay. Ede Are is still named after Are, Asmodeus still pays tribute to Asmodeus, and Tezcatlipoca is named after the Mayan deity Tezcatlipoca, who is kind of like the jack-of-all-trades deity in Mayan mythology, kind of like Hermes. And Superbia is still called Superbia, which means pride in Latin. And since we're on the topic of names, I feel like I should probably mention that Darklord cards were called Dadenshi in Japan. Now, Dadenshi translates to fallen angel, which in the OCG it kind of cross-related to other cards since they had Dadenshi in their name. Marie and Rificule had Dadenshi in their names in the OCG, and during the English beta, the card effects of the newer Darklord cards said target Darklord or Fallen One. So to make things easier, Konami decided to change the names of Marie the Fallen One and Nurse Rificule the Fallen One to Darklord Marie and Darklord Nurse Rificule. Because of this, I personally don't categorize them as part of the OG Darklord archetype, but they're now part of it, so yeah, there you go. Now, let's get into the artwork. You'll notice there is a huge artwork change from the older cards compared to the newer ones. The older ones have this kind of plain and sparkly background, while the newer ones have the monsters depicted in ruins with sick red halos. Well, the cards with the plain, sparkly background were all used by Midori Hibiki in the GX manga, while the ones that don't weren't featured in any kind of Yu-Gi-Oh! Media as of yet. And since they are fallen angels, they have these beautiful black wings, which totally add to the style points. And the card artworks can even depict the story of the archetype, which I'll talk about later. And thank the gods, Konami didn't censor any of the cards. I would have been so pissed if they had removed the halos and wings, since Konami has been known to do that. But thankfully they didn't, and the artwork is still A+ in my book. I guess they are really becoming more lenient with card artwork changes, which is nice to see. Now, let's talk about playstyle. The Darklord archetype focuses on sending monsters to the graveyard, and then using spells like Contact to special summon them from the graveyard. Plus, their Pay a Stack effect allows the spell and trap cards to be recycled back into the deck, so Morningstar can mill them again, etc. Plays go on. Since this is a graveyard-reliant deck, cards like Card Trooper and perhaps the Burning Abyss and Lightsworn archetypes would really help this deck out by getting their cards to the graveyard, which would help set up your awesome plays. The downside of this, however, is that since it is a graveyard-reliant deck, cards like Masked Hero Darklaw will completely shut down this deck. Ophion is also a major pain in the ass for this deck, since this deck relies on special summoning high-level monsters, and Ophion is, well, Ophion. You could also try running Plague Spreader Zombie for synchro plays, although I personally haven't tried that out yet, since I'm more of an Xyz player personally. Speaking of Xyz, by the way, let me know in the comments if it's Xyz or XYZ. I don't know. Anyway, continuing on. Speaking of XYZs, the rank 8s are a must-have, since on most occasions you'll be running 3 Superbias and 2 to 3 Zeratos. Rank 8s are extremely easy to make and also very useful. You can go into number 38, which your opponent is going to have a bad time with, or you can go into 23, which can go into 84, which can go into 77, which can negate its destruction by card effect and wipe your opponent's field. Or you can go the Galaxy route and make this, which goes into this, which goes into this, which can go into your opponent's life points twice. And since you'll be paying stacks a lot, you can also use that to your advantage, since 35 buffs up all your monsters, including itself, by the difference of yours and your opponent's life. Plus, it can also make 77, so what's wrong with that? Ukabak can make rank 3s, so you can make the legendary Quick Scoper of the ban list. I'm talking about the one, the only, Dante. Dante is great because it gets mills and can go into defense position at the end of your turn. Now, there aren't any level 4 Darklord monsters, which means you can't make your Castel or MST dragon, but Phantom of Chaos is a good alternative. It's a level 2 fiend, which can allow you to banish an effect monster from your graveyard, and that card copies its effect. Plus, since it's dark, it can also be used as a great allure target. Speaking of allure, you should be running at least 2 to 3 copies of Allure of Darkness, since having a +1 is just simply too OP. Additionally, since Reborn is banned, run 3 Call the Haunted along with 3 Darklord contacts. You need to get your cards into the graveyard, and then start special summoning them, starting with Superbia, which then special summons another Darklord monster in addition. Soul Charge is also a really good staple to run as well. For traps, I personally run 1 Warning and Strike, simply because you don't want to pay too much life since you will be constantly paying stacks multiple times a turn via your monster's effects. You could also run Mask Change 2, but since the majority of your monsters are levels higher than Danklaw's, it just basically clogs everything up, and I personally don't run it. Additionally, you could try running Trade-In due to the large number of level 8 targets. My personal playstyle preference is I just prefer to directly mill them into the graveyard, so I don't really bother with them. Also, Zerato is pretty much a Regeki that blows itself up during the end phase, but you can make your Xyz play with it, so the self-destruct sequence won't activate, and you still got your opponent's field clear. Also, this deck has its own break control and Regeki break, which is really helpful and useful. Darklord Descent, I feel, is too conditional, but you could potentially make use of it to your advantage if you know a deck in the meta, like sometime in the future meta, is going to start spitting out level 8 monsters. The cost, in my opinion, is still too high for what you get, but if you want to run it, be my guest. I'm not telling you what to play and what to not play. Plus, since this is a fairy deck, really, any cards that are good in fairies will help this deck. Because fairies. So now is a short list of some pros and cons. So some of the pros are, this deck is highly graveyard reliant, which means there are a lot of other cards you can mix in that will synergize well with it. It has high-level monsters that are easy to summon, which can make great XYZ plays and rank ups. It's relatively cheap to build. The deck can be made for under $150, and it can be competitive in more than one format. You can even mix zombies in it for dank synchro plays. Morningstar can OTK your opponent for quick and easy wins. And they have their own Regeki break, and brain control, and trade-in, because Ixchel is technically a trade-in and a +2. Also, they are a pretty underground deck, so no one would really be expecting them, and plus they just look really badass. So I mean, what's more badass than playing with Fallen Angels? Come on, dude. Now for the cons. Since the Darklord deck is a highly graveyard reliant deck, cards like Darklord will completely shut this deck down. And since it uses a ton of XYZ cards, cards like Forbidden Apocrypha will wipe your field. However, no one really uses Forbidden Apocrypha, so it's usually nothing to worry about. However, to build this deck, or even the engine, you need 3 Darklord Ixchels, which, like all the new Darklord cards, are short printed. Ixchels are like $30 a piece, which means you're looking at minimum $100 for 3 cards. But this Yu-Gi-Oh, bruh, come on. Also, Darklord cards are hard to come by in general, so it's kind of hard to actually build a physical deck. I'm still trying to build mine, and it's almost been like 4 years. Granted, it's because I don't order cards online, but shipping really just adds like another $30, and I don't want to spend that. And you can't bargain online. Max C doesn't really stop this deck, unless you're going for the Morningstar OTK. And well, that's pretty much all the pros and cons I can think of right off the top of my head. I'm sure there are more, but for now I'm sticking to these. I might add some more in later. After creating the world, Lucifer created his angels, and he also created his perfect creation, the one who he deemed was righteous in all ways. That was the angel Lucifer. All was well, but Lucifer gained too much pride. He thought he was better than everyone, even better than God, and he tried to usurp him. He gathered a mass of followers, and he tried to overtake the throne of God. However, God judged him and banished him from heaven. Lucifer and his followers landed on Earth, where they came across the warrior of Zera and other such heroes and monsters. They used their Darklord enchantment to convert them over to their side. And Nastin who still had some of his angelic power left, began to use it to open the gate to heaven. Alas, the Darklord monsters began their rise to heaven again, to destroy all God and then soon all of his creation. The final battle is about to begin. This is basically the lore I came up, or it could be something completely different and I have no fucking idea. I'm just making stuff up.